Good morning, everybody. Welcome to class this morning. Thank you for joining me. Whether you're watching live or you're watching the recording, I appreciate you watching. Thanks for tuning in. So this morning, we're just going to talk a little bit of HTML. We're not going to spend too long on it this morning. I was just looking over and seeing who all's already turned stuff in, and it seems like most people for this module have already turned stuff in. So that's great. So that means I don't need to spend a ton of time on things. We'll cover things really quickly and we'll get through them. And from the looks of it, right, just to start out with a few announcements here, from the looks of it, the next few weeks of class that we have, they're going to kind of be split classes or double classes where I talk about things from two different modules, and that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to talk about Module 5 content, and I'm going to get started with Module 6 content. Next week, we'll finish up with Module 6 content, and we'll start talking about Module 7 content. And then I believe even the week after that, we'll finish up with Module 7 content, and we'll start talking about Module 8 content. And we will see where we're at from there. All right, so that's kind of our next few weeks of live streams planned. Yeah, so I think that's the big thing there. Also, don't forget, today is the due date for the Module 5 labs. You want to make sure that you have those turned in by 11:59 p.m. today. This particular module lab, not very complicated, right? Not a very hard lab. Should be something that everybody should be able to complete very quickly. But we will kind of build on this lab a little bit over the next few weeks as we kind of progress and go forward. So the choices that we make and the decisions that we implement into our code in the next couple of weeks will have an impact on us down the line. So it's important that we're doing things right up front. And so I want to just start out in Replit today, and I want to just do some code and let that work out for us. So we are still working in Replit. You know, that was one of the things that I talked about last week, was the fact that Replit has so many different types of coding languages that you can use on it, that you can play with, that you can learn on. And it even supports our web development languages that we'll be talking about over the next few weeks. So HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And before I get too deep into this, I just remembered another announcement. I have graded your Module 4 labs. Don't forget to go in and look at the feedback on those. You can check the rubric scores and look at the feedback in your My Grades section. There. And if you have any questions about any of that, please let me know. So we're going to talk about, building HTML. And that's going to be our focus for this week and next week. And we're going to start out pretty simple. This is just an overview survey class of all of this different stuff. So we're just going to kind of keep it basic. Right? So the primary thing that we focus on in Module 5 is that we talk about the HTML skeleton, which are our key items that we need to be able to create our website. Then we have headings and lists, right? Or I should say headers and lists. Or no, headings and lists. I was right the first time. Headings and lists. Right, so I'm going to create an HTML, CSS, JavaScript replit here. So if I click the Create REPL button like we did last week, I have mine here as a favorite. You probably won't yet. You can just type in HTML. This is a little interesting template they're starting here. It's an auto refresh template. And so you can use that one if you want, or you can just use the regular one. An auto refresh template just refreshes your live site, the output side, while you are creating new code. So it changes things while you're working on it without having to rerun everything, which can be pretty useful. I'm just going to use the regular HTML, CSS, and JavaScript template. And I'm going to give it a name, CTI 110. Summer 23 HTML basic. And so we've got, a similar structure to what we had last time. Right? Except in the middle here now, this is where we write our HTML instead of our Python like we were writing last week. The output over here shows us how our website would look. And then we have our files, and you'll see we have multiple files this time. Instead of just one, like with our Python, we have an index.html, which is where we'll write our HTML files. We have a script.js, which is where we will write our JavaScript when we get to that point, and a style.css, which is where we'll write our CSS when we get to module 7. So we can see here that we get, by default, a template given to us. And you might think, well, that's not realistic. Why would you let us do something that utilizes a template already? Well, let me show you something. Right? When we start to do more advanced code, we start to do things in a code editor. And I have my students use something called Visual Studio Code as our code editor of choice. And so what happens if I make a new file that is a new HTML file? I'll just call this test.html. So when you get into things like VS Code and other things that are similar, you have something called emit. So you can see, right, I'm not starting here with a template, but I can use emit, which is a plugin here in VS Code and in a lot of other code editors, to write some short code that will expand it out into a template for me. So for example, if I just hit and put in an exclamation point, since it knows my file is an HTML file because I built it as an HTML file, I can just select this HTML, this exclamation point here in my HTML, and it'll give me the entire template, right? And it's going to give me the entire HTML skeleton plus metadata, right? And so if you watch the material in the module, it talks about the HTML skeleton. There are a few things that you need for your HTML skeleton. You need your doc type, you need your HTML tags, you need your head tags, and you need your body tags. Your head is where things that your user doesn't necessarily see, it's where that stuff goes, right? So what we have here is we have, this is where we put our title. The title is what the text is that shows up in the tab. So we'll see that here in just a few minutes. And then we also have a couple sets of metadata that we learn about in some future classes. One of them is for character encoding. One of them is for setting a viewport size for the purposes of responsiveness. Then the body is where we have to focus on putting all of the code that we write, right? All of the basic HTML that we write. So when we look at our replet here, we can see a very similar structure, right? We see our doc type HTML, we see an HTML tag, we see our head tags. This head tag has a link to our style sheet. And we see our body tags, which also has a link to our JavaScript in it. Now, one of the things that you might want to do is you might want to clean this up a little bit, because you don't need everything that's in here. So one of the first things that I would recommend you all doing when you start a new replet is to clean up the template that it gives you. Right, so one of the first things that you might want to do is you might want to change the title to be relevant to your project. Right, we said the title is what appears on the tab. I can click this button here all the way on the right. I can probably kind of zoom into that so you can see it a little bit better there. This little square with an arrow on it there. That'll open the output in a new tab. And if we do that, we can see the name of this website is Replit. And if I change that and I type in, in between these two tags, I type in something like HTML basics. Right, whenever I run this and refresh this, we can see now it says HTML basics up here in my tab at the top of my screen. Right, that's where my computer gets that information to know what to put there. So we don't want to touch anything in the head here. We can leave the head alone. Leave all of this where it's at. Leave your doc type, leave your HTML, leave your body, leave this JavaScript source here that's on my line 13, because that's going to connect you to your JavaScript file. If you delete the link to your CSS or the link to your JavaScript and forget about it, when we get to that point where we're doing CSS and JavaScript, it will not work. Right? So we want to make sure that we keep those. Now you can delete here where it says hello world. Right? We can delete that out. That's just to have a little bit of text on the page. We also have this script here that's on my line 20. What that does is that puts this little badge down here in the corner that says made with Replit. And so we don't necessarily need that on our website. We can delete that off of our website. So we can take everything from line 15 through line 20 and delete that out of our project, right? Line 15 through 19 there, that's just a comment. That's our HTML comment. Now, we looked briefly at like Python comments previously and talked about we could use the hashtag to make a single line comment in Python. And in HTML, we use this structure here where we say less than exclamation point dash dash to start a comment, and then dash dash greater than to end a comment. And that basically just tells our browser to ignore this thing. So I can delete everything from here. And then I basically have a nice clean template that I can start to work with, right? And we can see that it just has our HTML skeleton, the same thing that we would be given if we were using a standard code editor like VS Code, plus links to our style sheet and our JavaScript file. Another thing that I like to do when I'm getting started is I like to just come up here to line 12. That's right under my opening body tag. And I like to hit enter just a couple times just to give me a little breathing room and a little space to work. So, some of the things that you'll notice, right, is that most HTML elements are in pairs. Right, we have a head tag and we have an accompanying closing head tag. We have a body tag and an accompanying closing body tag. And so we see this structure, and it's all the same. Right, we see this structure when we have a bit of HTML where things go between it. Right, so we put a bunch of other HTML in our body, so there are things that go between the body tags. So we need to have an area defined as the body, so we need an opening and closing tag. So most of our tags have an opening and closing tag equivalent. There are some tags that are what we call self-closing, which means they do not have an opening and closing. The image tag, which will probably be the last thing that we get to today, is a self-closing tag. But what we'll see here, right, is that anything that we want to show our user, right, any text output that we want to show our user, goes between the body tags. Right, it goes somewhere in between these two tags. On line 11 and on line 19 here in my demonstration. So we talk about headings and we talk about heading levels in this module. And so there are several different heading levels, but you will only ever use maybe 3 or 4 of them. Right? And that's based on their purpose. Right? So if I have an H1, that is a top level heading. right? We can relate that to Word, right? If I open up a Microsoft Word document here, we have these styles here, and we have a heading level 1 and a heading level 2. And if you are working in Word, if you have a main topic, that is a heading level 1. And if you have a subtopic of main topic, that is a heading level 2. And then if you have a subtopic of your subtopic of the main topic, that's a heading level 3. If you're going back to a new main topic, that's a heading level 1 again. And it works the same way in HTML. Right? We get a little tempted to use our H1s and H2s based on the size that they are. But we should not do that. That is not their purpose. We can change the sizes of our headings when we get to HTML or when we get to CSS. We can make the headings any size that we want to make them. Right? And then it doesn't change the meaning that we attach to our headings on the back end with what we call semantics. When we're talking about HTML semantics, we're talking about the meaning that the tags that we use have. Right? So if I have a heading level 1, that is a main topic. If I had a heading level 2, that is a subtopic of the main topic. If I have a subtopic of the main topic, well, that's a heading level 3. Subtopic of the subtopic of the main topic. And whenever I'm starting a new topic, I go back to an H1. And if that new topic has a subtopic, it's an H2. And so on and so forth. Right? Which is why I say you will probably never use all of the heading levels. It is a rare occasion when I have to use past an H3. Right? So getting to H6, a subtopic of 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 a topic, is going to be an ultra rare occurrence. Right? So we want to make sure that that we're using our subtopics in the right way, because it applies meaning to them. And this meaning is used by people, right? Like if we think about like people with disabilities, say people who are blind, right? People who are blind use screen readers to be able to access websites. And so if they want a list of all the main topics on a page, their screen reader knows to pull all of the H1s, because those are the main topics. So just like, a regular sighted person could just kind of scan through and see, big topics in a document, someone who is blind could be able to use their screen reader, just pull up a list of topics and read them that way, so they don't have to read every single thing in the document. And so that's why that's so important. And so if we run that, we can see our output there, and we can see things are different sizes, right? Which is why, it is sort of tempting to use a different heading tag than what you should be using, because maybe I don't need it to be that big, or maybe I want it to be bigger, or whatever. Right? But remember that when we use CSS, it's actually CSS that we can use to change the sizes. And we could even make them all the same size if we wanted to. But they would still have their semantic meaning on the back end, so things like those screen readers could still work. Now up underneath one of these, I can put a paragraph. And a paragraph is just a p tag. And there is only one paragraph tag. There is only one p tag. Every single time I teach the class, right, it seems like there's at least one student who will confuse the paragraph tag with the heading tag and think when they're ready to make a new paragraph, they need to make a P2. Even though it auto-completed that for me, there is no such thing as a P2. When you're making paragraphs on your web page, you just use a P1. And so I've got a website over here on my other monitor that just generates some dummy text for me. So if I were to take some of this dummy text, copy it, and put it in this paragraph, then run that, we can see the dummy text here. And one of the cool things is that you can kind of see why using a paragraph is significant, right? Because it actually gives us a little bit of styling by default, right? Like we get a little bit of separation here between our heading and our body and our different subheadings. And if we added another paragraph of text under this, right? So if we got a new idea and we're starting a new paragraph of ideas, we can just add another paragraph directly underneath that. I just copied and pasted here. And we can see there's a little bit of spacing here that's done by default that gives us the ability to sort of see the difference between the two paragraphs. And, you can create as many paragraphs as you want in a page. I've refreshed over here on my other window and got myself some new dummy text. And I can just paste my text in between there, right? Note that my text goes between my paragraph tags, my opening and my closing paragraph tags. And it makes my website look a certain way. Right, and so let's just add a couple more here just so we have like a full looking website. Right, as you can see, like this is kind of simple, right? And that basically is everything you need to know to be able to complete this week's lab. Right, so let's add ourselves a couple comments in here, just so you can kind of be clear on things when you get them. So headings and subheadings are relational, which means that H1's our main topic, H2's our subtopic of our main topic, H3 is our subtopic of our subtopic of our main topic, and so on and so forth. So if we have new main topics, they are all H1s. If the new main topic has a subtopic, like we see here, they are H2s. We can look at our paragraphs. Paragraph tags are for paragraphs of text. There is only one type of paragraph tag. And I can use as many of them as I want. I mean, that's basically what you need to know for the first module, right? Pretty simple. Headings and paragraphs. We covered that pretty quickly. So let's take a few minutes to discuss some of the module. Let me make sure I'm on my comments window and looking at everything. Just in case anybody has any questions. Don't want to go too fast. But we can go ahead and look at some of the module 6 material, which is talking about links and lists and all this sort of fun stuff. Right, so to make a list, I use an A tag. A. And an A tag is an anchor tag. And so our anchor tag is a paired tag, right? So we do use 2 tags for our anchor tag because there is some information that goes in between them. But our anchor tag is the first tag that we're dealing with that has another part to it, and that part is called an attribute. So our attributes always go inside the opener of our tag. So they always go inside of the less than and greater than symbols of our opening tag. So I put my attribute right in here, right next to my A tag. And so the primary attribute that we use for an anchor tag is an href. Which is our reference page. Right? That is the website that we want to go to. So let's say maybe right here at the start of our first paragraph, I want to put a link to Cleveland Community College. And so if I want a link to be a part of that paragraph, I'm going to put that between my paragraph tags, right? Because that makes it a part of the paragraph. So right here after the opening paragraph tag, I'm going to add a less than, a greater than, and we'll put Cleveland Community College right there between those 2 tags. Right, and let me zoom in on this just a little bit so it's easier for you all to see without the extra stuff, right? So we have an A tag, our opening A tag. In between our tags is what we want the link to say, and then our closing A tag. And we're going to add our href attribute here. So it's href equals, and then in quotes, we put the website that we want people to go to. So in this case, it would be https://www.clevelandcc.edu. And so now when we refresh our site here, we can see right there in our first paragraph is a link to Cleveland Community College. You can see it's blue, it's underlined. And if I click that, it takes me to the Cleveland Community College homepage. Now, one of the things that we want to pay attention to, right, is that when we are linking to an external site, right, so when we're linking to a site that's not our own, we want to add another attribute to our link. Right? Because you can see what happens here is that it opens up the Cleveland Community College website in the exact same window where it was open, where it had our website open. So now we have to use the back button on our browser to get back to our site. We don't want to do that. So I can add another attribute to my opening A tag here. And this attribute is going to be called the target attribute. And the target attribute tells the browser where to open the website. And so you can see it gives us some information about that. Self loads it into the same window, which is the default action. What we want to do here is, since this is an external link, we want to open it with the target of underscore blank. So we want to say target equals, and in quotes, we put underscore blank. So now this link will open in a new window by default. So let's run that. Let's refresh this. And we see if we click this, we get a new tab up here that's the Cleveland Community College website. If we close this tab, we go right back to the website. So we haven't actually left the website. Our website is still there. New website, put in new link that's opened up, put in new tab. Now we might want to do things on our own site, right? And make links to our own site. So if we do that, we can just create another file here. I'll call this new underscore page.html. You can't put spaces in these names, but I can put, our HTML skeleton in here. So if I wanted to do the doc type, I could put that in there. I could put HTML tags in here. I could put head tags in here. I could put body tags in here. Note how the head and body is separate, right? Just like your head and body is separate on your body, right? Your head sits on your shoulders. It's not together, right? That's another thing that people will try to do is they'll try to do this, where they put the head inside the body or something. We don't want that. Right, we won't worry about the metadata here because that metadata is not a requirement, but we will put a title here, and that title will be second page. So now I have another page that's a part of this project. And so we'll put we'll put a paragraph here that says oh, you found it. Right, so now if we run this, if we go back here, we're taken to index by default. But if on the end of our URL here, we put new page.html, then we get to our new page. Right, so if we're linking to a new page that is on our own site, so let's go back here, let's go up here right under the body tag, let's put a new anchor tag here, we'll say href equals, and in quotes, we just need the name of the file. We just need the name of the file since it is in this project. So we can make this new page.html. And we can put go to new page /a. And that'll put us a link up here at the very tippy top of our page. If we look at this site, it says go to new page. And we go there and we found it. Right? Note that we didn't put a target here because when it's an internal link, when it's a link to our own site, we don't have to worry about that. Right? But what we probably should worry about is adding a link back. Right? So I can take this back here. Copy that, put it here, and send it to index.html and put go home. Right, so now on our site, we can go to the new page, and we can go back home, and we can switch back between them. We can also go to Cleveland Community College and have that open in a new window. Pretty fancy. Now, if you go to a regular page here, right, one of the things that we notice is if we go to our new page, we're going to newpage.html. But if we go to clevelandcc.edu, and we look at the site there, we can see none of these URLs have a .html file on it. Right? If I go to course catalog here, it's just course catalog. And that's because they're taking advantage of the folder structure. So if we use a folder structure, we can have a folder here, and we can call that new underscore page. And then we can move our new page into there. And now if we do that, we need to rename this file, right? Because any file that belongs to a folder that is the home page for that folder, the home page is always the index. So the main index.html is just our main home page. The index.html for our new page folder here, it would just be the home page for this folder. So I would want to rename this to index.html. So now this link here, instead of going to newpage.html, can go to /newpage. Right, so now if I click that, I can go there, and it gets the job done. But one of the things that we'll notice here, right, this gets me to my new page, but now my Go Home button, my Go Home button here in my new page just goes to index.html. So if I click this, it's just going to go to the same site because this is now index.html. So what I need to do here is I need to put a relative link right here to tell it to go home. So in order to do that, I can put .. And that .. at the beginning there basically just means go up a folder, go out of this folder into the folder above. And so the folder above is just our root folder. So now if we click that, right, it'll take us back to our home page. Go to new page, go home. Right, and both the pages are named index.html. So that's how that works. I want to make a list really quickly. I wanted to get to images today, but I think we'll just do all of multimedia next week instead, just so we can get done a little bit early. So we all use lists all the time, right? Like we get up in the morning and we make a list in our head about the things that we're going to do that day. We go to the grocery store, we have a list of items that we need from the grocery store, so on and so forth, right? And so that's really what we use lists for in HTML, right? So we use lists just to create a list of items. There is a way that we can use lists with links to make a navigation, but that's kind of beyond the scope of this course, right? So maybe I want to make a list, and there are two types of lists that we can make, right? There is an ordered list and an unordered list, and we use an ordered list in cases where the order of operations matter, right? The ordering of things matters, right? So if I have an ordered list where everything has to be in a certain order, or everything is ranked in a certain order, I use OL tags. OL for ordered list. And we'll go ahead and make sure we have a closing tag with it. So if I have an ordered list, anything that I put inside of that list will be a list item, and it will count all of these things. So we use LI tags for our list items. And this will be list item 1. And they're all just list items. My computer is going to count it for me. So I can just kind of copy and paste here a few times and say this is list item 2. This is list item 3. This is list item 4. Right? And so since these list items are inside of an ordered list, it's going to automatically count them for me and give me a little bit of numbering. And we see here also, right, that it gives a little bit of styling, moves it over a little bit, makes it look a little different. if the order doesn't matter, right, I can simply change this OL to a UL. So it goes from an ordered list to an unordered list. So we can just throw us a couple comments in here. Ordered list for when the order of things matter. Unordered list for when they don't. And in future classes, we talk more about lists. We go into, for example, how you can change these little icons that are on the lists, how you can change the way that things are numbered, and so on and so forth. But for our purposes right now, that's really all you need to know. And so that gets us through headings, that gets us through paragraphs, that gets us through links, and that gets us through lists for the time being. So I think we're good, and we can wrap up here. All right, we'll wrap up here for today. I forgot to hit the alternate recording button, so I'll put the YouTube video in the class as the recording. And if anybody needs the alternate recording, you can just let me know and I'll get it for you. I can download the YouTube video and rehost it. It'll just take a while to be able to do that. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them. I'm monitoring everything, monitoring email, monitoring Teams, monitoring the live chat. If you're watching the recording here and you have any questions, let me know. Send me an email, send me a Teams message, and I will answer them as soon as possible. And I will send you this file in the announcement for today as well. Right, when I post the record. So you got a good example here. Should get you through this lab and some of the next lab. And that is all that I have for you for today. So we'll just hang out for a minute just in case anybody has any questions. Go ahead and get them in. Since I'm not seeing any coming through, we'll go ahead and wrap up here. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.